Hey everybody, Patrick Sheridan here live on the campus of Fresno State at the Larry Sutherland Wind Festival, and I'm here with Larry Sutherland.
Son of a gun.
Unbelievable, he came right off the pages of the program and turned into a human. Awesome. So we had a nice chat about lots of different things this last segment, but the thing that I get to do in the fall when I'm at these marching band competitions and talking to band directors that have lots of experience at a variety of levels is have them sort of think about, now that you have this beautiful bird's eye hindsight, of what are the things that new directors need to be, because you mentioned it's a hard gig, and it's a hard gig. My wife's a music educator,
Yeah.
and has taught all the levels, and it's a tough thing. And like, what do you got to know in the first 5 years that in terms of coming out the other side, still liking teaching and music and children?
First thing to do is make friends with the janitor.
Yeah.
That's a little tongue in cheek, but
It's true,
but there's
yeah.
but you've got to get along with people in any business that you're in, and so that's, and a lot of times you're working so hard you don't have time to think about that, but that's a really important, that you're good friends and you communicate with your administrators and make friends with the people that you work with. That's really important. The other thing is, go to as many festivals and get clinicians to come in, and go to all the music educator conferences, go to the clinics, soak up stuff like a sponge, and try to steal stuff from everybody. Don't get isolated, and be open to things. That's just really, really, really important. And the other stuff is, try to be active on your instrument. We talk about this,
Yeah.
because it really helps your music making if you're still an active performer. So it's, as I said, it's a very difficult job, and you've got so many groups to please, and so many things to do that it's. I admire. I had an easy job when I was here at Fresno State compared to the high school and middle school band directors. So I admire them and I applaud them.
I think it's when you get in a big metropolitan area, it can be much easier to find a place to play, a community band or a community group or a church group. There's lots of options, or can be more options. But when you're sort of more isolated, you maybe have to find it, or make
Well,
some chamber music.
We have in town here. We have at least 3 community bands: Clovis, Fresno, and another band. So there are places to play.
Yeah, even in a smaller,
Smaller
communities, for
And the
sure.
other thing is that if you're around anywhere near a university or a college, get their students to come out and give clinics to your kid. Get a clarinet player. They'll come out for lunch or something maybe. And
Yeah.
that's
sure.
that's such a, because if you're a trombone player and you don't know much about oboe, have an oboe player. Ask an oboe player to come out and help. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think the idea that you're going to do it on your own is one
Oh,
of the things
it's
that
impossible.
needs to burn out. And,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to ask for help early on.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that there's the universal truth about any trade is that when you first started, because it takes practice, it's a trade, you're not very good at it. So I think when you're in college, the best thing you can do is get out there and find a student and get on somebody's marching band staff, or go give your services away to the local, high school orchestra.
Yeah, I
or
mean,
junior high
volunteer,
orchestra.
yeah,
volunteer your
volunteer.
services so that you can
And
get in
you'll
there
learn.
and learn from what's
Yeah.
going on, because some of the things about even the curriculum's too stuffed. I'm not even sure how you'd manage this, but how to deal with the band parent groups, and
Oh, boy.
run a student council
Oh,
and your
boy.
band council, and
Oh.
some of these things are you only can learn by witnessing, and
They can't teach it. It's in
Exactly.
college.
So there's many of those
There's
subjects not
so many
possible.
things you can't teach in college. Number one, when I was in college, I didn't think I was going to need any of that stuff. You know what I mean? And it's not till you get out and say, "Oh, I should have paid more attention."
Yeah. For sure, for sure, for sure. Well, that's it's music to my ears to hear that. So if you were gonna, like, is there any? I mean, there's a lot of things you got to do, so many things, and you were describing when we were on the break some of the things that you do for world projects, and that you're still involved musically. And on both sides, listening to it, helping, teaching, adjudicating, as well as conducting and performing. on your instruments. What's the, what are the, what drives you back to your horn still?
The joy of making music your own way and or with other people, and I that's as I told you, one plays the instrument because you like the noise it makes, and
Yeah.
of course that's I do.
Yeah. I
And
think-
there's still stuff to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
For me, one of the things I will never forget in music education is walking in the first time in 2002 that I joined the faculty at American Band College.
Oh,
And
right.
you go in the afternoons, and in the afternoons they become a band. So every band director they pick up an instrument and you become a band, and they separate into bands. And I think everybody in a band basically emotionally freezes at about the end of 7th grade, because you walked into that band room and there are people with gray hair and beards and people that had been with 30 years of teaching experience, that their feet were dangling from their chair, and
Right.
they're acting like 7th graders again. And it's like that's what brought us into the room, is the thing that we have to keep with us during our career, to remember that that's what we loved in the beginning.
Sure.
And when you cut that out of your life, because you're too busy with all the stuff that the job wants you to do, you're cutting out the most essential part. And that's the part that when I'm talking to people that are 10 years, 15, 20, 25, facing serious burnout, the question I have to ask, but I'm almost reticent to do it because I know how they feel about the answer. If the answer is no, is, are you still playing? And because losing that connection is.
I think so. I think you're right.
And I'm not sure that when you're on your way out the door in a music ed degree, people are going, "Hey, play, get in a band." I don't know that message is. I don't even think and everybody's so like, I got to go learn how to do my job, and it's like, don't forget to be a musician.
That's right. That's right.
You know.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I know you do, and it's so much fun to talk to you about this. How are we doing over there, Dave? It's looking interesting, huh? That's good. We've got a couple. I'm not sure I know either one of these pieces really well. Madera South
one
High
is
School
that?
Wind Ensemble coming up. Jay Rosette, and Antares, Richard Salcedo, and Everything Beautiful, 3-movement suite from Sam Hazo. Do you know this piece?
I heard him because I judged him either last week or the week before.
Week before.
Yeah, yeah.
3-movement. Everything is Beautiful. It's 3 movements. In the Stillness of Remembering, Irish tune, and While I Think of Thee, Dear. So that should be I'm sure that's going to be lovely.
Yeah.
Maybe beautiful. So that's what's coming up here in a few minutes. Their stage is almost set. And we're here talking to Larry Sutherland of the Larry Sutherland Wind Festival. And we mentioned earlier about, the idea of, especially if you're not involved with it. Like my wife's a horn player. If there was one when she was in school, didn't play in the jazz band on the Kenton Orchestra stuff. So never had any exposure to that style of music. And then became a high school band director, and then suddenly jazz band turned up on her curriculum, joined the band that I conduct, the community band, and we do jazz on almost every concert at the end, and one concert a year that's a whole big band show, and we use a horn section. And so there was a cultural divide, as it were.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this idea that having those styles, I mean, like, for example, we talk about release language in a jazz band all the time, and more than one kind of release. And that, which leads to a huge discussion about how we start all the different notes and the performance practice involved in that, and it's far more layered and in depth than classical music. Yet I don't really feel like release language in classical music, especially more modern classical music, is that much different in terms of the release language or the articulation language, for example. But it's a topic that we talk about vigorously as a leader of a jazz group, and I feel like that's one of those things that was like much further back in the background when you talk about a concert band. And so that's why this idea that that your ability to problem solve in a multifaceted, multi-layered way with a concert band is greatly heightened if you've got some jazz in your tradition, and if you don't come from an instrument that doesn't normally play it, that you should figure out how to intersect with it in college so that you have that as a part of your upbringing.
Yeah, that's another layer of things to learn,
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm a big articulation freak. I mean, I learned to be particular about articulations by putting on a Dennis Brain recording of the Mozart horn concertos and trying to copy with my euphonium the exact articulations that he did. And in the process of that, I learned a lot about lip slurs, tongue slurs, valve slurs, combining all of them, tapering, you know, I mean, and that just led me to listen really carefully to the beginning, the middle, and ends of notes, because they're different. And you got to do it right if you're going to play that style of music. I mean, to me, articulation is style, and it's really important.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, I would ask this question, but you gave the answer already. Is if you were in high school and went to the Midwest in 1953, is that what you said? That means that the popular music of your high school times is the greatest, some of the greatest music in American history.
Yeah, I can't even remember what it was though. It was so far back. I mean, I remember when I was a freshman in college, it was Rock Around the Clock.
Sure.
That was it, you know.
Yeah.
And so.
But coming up as a kid and in the 40s and the late 40s and into the 50s, and the tapering of the popularity of big band as the popular music. But then
sure.
The touring bands were all over the place. It's no shock that is a part of your.
Well, I played on the touring band. I played with Ralph Martiri and the Tommy Dorsey band with Warren Covington, and like that in 57, 58. That was the tail end. That was back when we could still play a full week. We could still get like 4 nights a week, which was a full week salary. And that was, but then it went down from there. So I was really on the tail end of that, of the big band era.
You got to work it.
Yeah.
Bring that experience to your students when you went to work as a.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah.
So before Fresno State, you were at the University of Missouri,
University
right?
of Missouri for 9 years. As a matter of fact, we had last March, we had the 50th anniversary reunion of when I started the University of Missouri Jazz Band.
Huh.
And
Wow.
I went back and I saw people who were in that. There were 8 people in that band that came, and I saw people I hadn't seen in 50 years. It was amazing.
That must have been so.
Oh, it was
gratifying.
just. Oh, it was very emotional.
I bet
very
it was.
emotional. And back when I did it, they wouldn't let me call it jazz band. We had a big meeting to try to find a title for what was going to be, and they came up with the University of Missouri Studio Band. That was what it was called. It wasn't a jazz band or a dance band or a jazz orchestra. It was a studio band.
Why was that? What was?
Because they were old people that didn't think that was right to have jazz.
We didn't want jazz in the university setting.
No. And the only reason we did was because one of our other campuses brought a jazz band to play in our hall, and our president happened to hear him, and he told the director of bands, "How come we don't have a band like that?" So the next day I got called in the office, said, "Larry, what would it take to have a band?" So, oh Lord, I tell you. It's really funny, but that was great.
Story.
Yeah,
that's a great story. Oh, cool. What is your if like? Let's do that, because we've got lots of band directors out there that are in that genre, especially in out west. There's some wonderful examples of great high school jazz bands.
Sure.
What are some of the things that were highlights in terms of, if you remembered, literature that were favorites when you were working with the jazz band A here, especially, you know, like,
well,
because in terms of jazz band writing, if you were playing the modern writers, you span 4 decades.
Yeah, there's so many
writers.
There's we started out with Kim Richmond.
Yeah.
And I'm so terrible with names, but oh God, I can see the charts in front of my eyes. But I commissioned a lot of music.
I know.
Lad McIntosh. I commissioned enough music from him that he could make a down payment on his house. Honest to God, what he told me. Lad McIntosh wrote. He was fantastic, and George Stone now I love his writing. He's like the Sammy Nestico of the 21st century. He's just terrific. So but you have to go out and dig them out. You have to go out and listen to jazz festivals, and they're publishing a lot more music now than they did. It's easier to find it.
For sure. Have you been able to see any of the essentially Ellington competitions?
I haven't seen it. I've heard a lot about it, and I've seen the music that they use on it and stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. What a nice program that is,
It's
man.
really nice.
Wow.
The output of these classics
Right.
from the big band era,
Right.
with all the good articulations and edited in a way
Yeah.
where high school groups can make some leeway with the style, and that they're connecting with that music. I
Yeah.
think is wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
that's the one of sort of between on the jazz side, between always wondering what different colors and melodies I'm going to hear from Maria Schneider
Yeah.
in a new project. I've just been, because they have, one of the things I get to see them quite often is the Jazz at Lincoln Center has a partnership with the Mesa Arts Center, which is the hall where
Oh,
this
wow.
brass band that I conduct is
Okay.
in Mesa, Arizona. So they're out there pretty regularly, and but they've just been doing some wonderful and things, and the compositions coming from all the cats in the band. It just struck me when they're there's it's like he's recreated the Ellington band, and he's got all the variety of characters in every seat in the ensemble, and many of them double either as singers or on other instruments, and so many of them are writers. This year, the Ted Nash composition, this Presidential
Oh,
Suite,
really?
won the large jazz ensemble Grammy, and it's a lot of the cats from the Jazz at Lincoln Center, and he has taken speeches from his favorite presidential moments from a variety of administrations,
Oh, wow.
and then written and had different political figures and historical figures read these quotes, and then in between interspersed new jazz compositions for
I'll
big
be
band.
darned.
And it's really great.
Oh, gee.
It's fantastic, but it's like the output creatively coming from the band is amazing. And then with the last time I saw them on the second half, they played with the Phoenix Symphony, and they did one of Wynton's symphonies. But on the first half, they sat as the 18-piece jazz band, flat, acoustically, and played an all Ellington set for 45 minutes.
Oh,
that
how
was
great.
gorgeous. I mean,
How
it was
great.
amazing. And as you would have heard them anywhere, no soloists with mics. It was
Yeah.
acoustic like you
Yeah.
would have heard it in a hall.
Yeah.
It was, and they played chamber music so that
Right.
everything made sense.
Well, he wrote chamber
played
music.
the room.
He wrote chamber music, and he knew every player on every instrument, and he wrote for them. You know, Cootie and all
Yeah.
of God. They were specifically for those people.
Yeah.
Trummy Young, Tricky Dick, all those guys. They
Yeah.
were all.
Well, I think that I feel like that's what they've sort of recreated that
Yeah.
scenario, and so when you get a chance to see them, and they're wonderful on the social media because they put out their output is they put so many things that you can see regularly for free. Their concerts, and it's really,
Yeah.
I think it's really, because I know it's commercially it's a slice of the pie music in
Right,
terms
it
of the
is.
music industry, but I feel like the popularity of it is with that because of this essentially Ellington thing and connecting with youth is
Well, I remember
holds
when
a
they
bright
first
future.
started that. Essentially, I thought, man, this is pretty cool,
Yeah,
and it's just gotten better and better.
for sure.
You know.
For sure. What's it look like, Dave? Time to go?
Yeah, they're starting to.
All right. We're going to hear Antares by Dick Salcedo and Everything Beautiful, a three-movement suite from Sam Hazo with Jay Rosette and the Madera South High School Wind Ensemble. And Larry, thank you so much for taking the time to hang with us
Hey,
and
man.
share with us.
What a joy to see you.
You
Gosh
too.
darn
You
it.
too, brother. You too.